This is the download from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Manuela Correa.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis.
The download is brought to you by Podscribe. Find out more at podscribe.com.
This week, Spotify has left the IAB. This Is Us stars discuss launching a rewatch podcast. IAB UK publishes ad revenue report for 2023. A new study of podcast listening in Japan has been published, and GroupM reclassifies a good portion of YouTube as CTV. Let's get started.
This Monday from James Cridland at Pod News. Spotify has quietly ended their IAB membership and has chosen to not recertify. As a result, Spotify-owned companies Megaphone, Chartable, and Spotify for Podcasters have been removed from the IAB's list of certified companies for podcast measurement. A spokesperson for Spotify tells Pod News that while they're no longer certified, they are all IAB v2.1 standard compliant. Agencies, advertisers, and holding companies commonly require IAB certification from platforms they work with, which could present friction going forward. In addition to the Spotify news, hosting service Podbean has been removed from the Tech Lab list of compliant companies. For more on the difference between IAB compliance and certification, Cridland has also refreshed a Pod News in-depth article breaking down that difference.
This Wednesday on Sounds Profitable, 2 years ago, the NBC drama This Is Us aired its final episode, capping off 6 seasons of television. Now, actors Mandy Moore, Sterling K. Brown, and Chris Sullivan are kicking off an episode-by-episode rewatch podcast named That Was Us. Celebrity-fronted rewatch podcasts have become a common occurrence in podcasting since the breakaway success of West Wing Weekly back in 2016. There's even a Wikipedia list. But in recent years, podcasts like That Was Us are closing the gap between the program itself and the rewatch. While Office Ladies took 6 years to start after the show's finale, This Is Us is just 2 years away. And last year's Kevin Pollak hosted My Mrs. Maisel pod from Q Code took the turnaround time down to just 10 days. In an interview with the 3 hosts, Brian Barletta asks Moore, Brown, and Sullivan what drives their motivation to bring back the spirit of This Is Us and how they anticipate interfacing with brands throughout the run of That Was Us. And unlike some of the earliest examples in the rewatch/retrospective genre, That Was Us is part of a new generation that understands the business of podcasting from the start. Gone are the days of actors rolling the dice on a podcast concept. Shows like That Was Us can employ proven, successful strategies, and they're working in a genre that has a special superpower. They can predict the future. Rewatch podcasts by design have a set episode count. There are 106 episodes of This Is Us to discuss, no more, no less, which means both the podcasters and brands working with them know the source material discussed ahead of time and can preempt topics and general tone of episodes from day one. The full 10-minute interview is available now on the Sounds Profitable podcast feed on our YouTube channel, and the full transcript along with video is available on the website version, link in the show notes.
This Wednesday, the IAB UK and PwC Digital Adspend study covering 2023 was published. The study, having tracked the size of the UK's digital advertising market since 1997, is built from a census of major UK media owners and intermediaries, covering both mobile and non-mobile advertising. This year's edition includes a revised classification of video and digital out-of-home. Overall, the total UK digital ad market was worth £29.6 billion. That is $36.9 billion US dollars, an 11% year-over-year increase. Despite an overall predictable 2023, the second half of the year gained momentum in the UK, accumulating an 18% year-over-year increase in H2 spend. Podcasting has grown 23% year-over-year and is narrowing the gap with streaming audio. Over the past 3 years, the two have almost reached parity, with podcasting's 2023 ad revenue reaching £83 million, while streaming sits at £92 million. For comparison, in 2021, podcasting made £58 million while streaming took home £110 million. The total growth of audio ad spend for 2023 is 12% year over year.
This Thursday, Japan-based digital audio advertising agency Otonal, in partnership with the Asahi Shimbun Company, has published the Survey of Podcast Usage in Japan number 4. The survey, conducted in early December of last year, is built from 10,000 respondents aged 15 to 69 and 800 daily podcast listeners selected by demographic breakdown. Key findings include that podcasts are as popular as TikTok consumption across all age groups. Approximately 50% of listeners consume more than 3 shows regularly. Podcast usage across all populations was 15.7%, though when filtered for teens, it rises to 32.8% and 25% for respondents in their 20s. 87.1% of users partake of podcasts while doing something else. Podcasts also scored particularly well in questions regarding media user information sensitivity when compared to YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, TV, radio, and newspapers. 39.6% of podcast-consuming respondents agree with the phrase, "I adopt new products and services faster than others," and 32.2% agreed with the phrase, "People often ask me about new trends." In both of those categories, podcasting took the lead by over 10 points. Podcasting's growth in Japan has been comparatively slow in comparison to other countries in the Southeast Asia region, but it is being adopted, and those who have adopted are passionate, tuned-in audiences.
Last Friday, from Ad Exchangers Optimizing the News, GroupM has announced that starting this June, they will begin classifying a higher proportion of YouTube ad revenue as connected TV, or CTV, rather than digital. The GroupM Global Business Intelligence newsletter announcing the change says their goal is to reflect how giants are increasingly viewing YouTube as part of their wider TV and CTV strategies. According to Nielsen's latest TV ratings report, YouTube's main app accounts for nearly 10% of all TV viewership, a number that could go higher if separate arms of the system were also included, like YouTube TV and Shorts. According to YouTube, CTV viewership for Shorts more than doubled between January and September of 2023. Given YouTube is now the number 1 platform for podcast discovery, that's good for both the healthy growth of video podcasting and podcasting as an overall industry, as the two are not uniquely exclusive. As Sound You Can See found late last year, video podcast consumers have no problem switching from video to audio, even for the same podcasts, when switching from viewing environments to tasks like driving. With the growing trend of YouTubers like Reds and Link and MrBeast and signing fast deals with streamers like Roku, and YouTube's proper watch time continuing to grow, YouTube is television for a lot of audiences.
Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's episode, but are worth including in your weekend reading. This week, the State of Podcast Agencies 2024. Co-Host has published their latest study built from surveying podcast agencies. Spotify reports first quarter 2024 earnings. Overall users, including free plans, increased to 615 million. Acast annual report by Brad Hill, where Hill breaks down the 94-page full-year report Acast recently published. MRC releases invalid traffic update, includes property-level reporting by Joe Mandisi. The new guidelines lay the groundwork for the future ability to filter out bad actors as more agencies report invalid traffic from them. Global to launch ID solution across all devices and environments by Ella Cigar. The new DAX ID is designed to be a cookie-free solution that combines IP and user agent to act as a proxy for listeners. Navigating the Real Risks of AI Audio by Stephen Goldstein, a breakdown of current and future issues presented by synthetically generated audio in both content and advertising.
And that was the download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned right in your podcast listening app or on soundsprofitable.com/podcast. And thank you for sticking with us as we bring you the top stories you might have missed from the past week. I'm Manuela Correa.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are myself, Tom Webster, and Brian Barletta. Special thanks to Spreaker for hosting the download, and to you for joining us. Robot.
Download complete.